I thought faking terminal illness would save my marriage. Instead, I watched my husband fall in love with my nurse while I lay there pretending to die. What I did next? I'm still not sure if I can forgive myself. Before I tell you what happened, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below. Your support means everything to this channel. My name is Laura, and 6 months ago I made a decision that destroyed 3 lives, including my own. It started with a text message. Just 7 words that shattered 22 years of marriage, working late again. Don't wait up. The same message I'd been getting every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 4 months. The same message that made my stomach twist into knots because I just knew he wasn't at the office. David and I met in college. He was pre-med, I was studying literature. Back then, he'd spend hours listening to me read poetry aloud, his eyes never leaving my face. Now he couldn't even look up from his phone when I spoke. I was 47, and I felt invisible. The mirror showed me crow's feet where David used to trace his fingers, gray threads in hair he once called sunset beautiful. When had I become furniture in my own life? That's when the idea came to me. Desperate, horrible, but it made sense at the time. I'd seen it in movies, read it in books. Nothing brings a family together like a health scare, right? Nothing makes a man realize what he's about to lose like the threat of actually losing it. So I started small. Fatigue. Headaches. Little complaints that could mean anything or nothing. David barely noticed at first, just mumbled something about stress and handed me aspirin. But I was persistent. I researched symptoms online, learned the language of illness. Weight loss came naturally when anxiety killed my appetite. Dark circles appeared under my eyes from sleepless nights spent planning my performance. The breakthrough came when I mentioned the word lump. David's head snapped up from his laptop faster than it had moved in months. What kind of lump? I touched my breast, let my voice shake just a little. I don't know. It feels different. Within 2 days, I was sitting in Dr. Morrison's office, David's hand tied in mine for the first time in years. The irony wasn't lost on me, that I had to fake dying to feel alive in my own marriage. The tests came back negative, of course. But I was ready for that. Doctor, I said, my voice barely a whisper, could there be something you missed? The fatigue is getting worse, and now I'm having night sweats. More tests. More worried glances from David. More attention than I'd received in years. When the second round came back clear, I knew I had to escalate. This is where everything went horribly, irreversibly wrong. I researched symptoms of conditions that were hard to diagnose, ones that required long-term monitoring. I learned to fake tremors, to stumble at just the right moments, to let my sentences trail off like I was forgetting words. Dr. Morrison referred me to a neurologist. Then an oncologist. Each appointment became a performance, and I was getting better at acting than I'd ever been at living. David transformed overnight. He started coming home early, bringing flowers, cooking dinner. He'd sit beside me on the couch, stroking my hair while we watched movies. It was everything I'd wanted. But here's what I didn't expect, the guilt was eating me alive from the inside. And here's what I really didn't expect, David hiring a private nurse to care for me at home. Her name was Emma, and she was 28 years old with everything I used to have. Bright eyes, smooth skin, that easy laugh that comes from not yet knowing how cruel life can be. She was kind, genuinely kind, in a way that made my deception feel even more monstrous. Emma would arrive every morning at 8, checking my vitals, administering medications I didn't need, chatting cheerfully about her weekend plans. She treated me with such gentle care that sometimes I almost believed I was actually sick. But the worst part? The part that still keeps me awake at night? I watched my husband fall in love with her. It started with gratitude. David thanking Emma for taking such good care of his wife. Then came the lingering conversations at the front door when her shift ended. The way his face lit up when she walked in. The way he started showering and shaving before she arrived. I lay in that bed, pretending to be weak, watching my husband become the man I'd fallen in love with in college, just not with me. With her. Emma was everything I wasn't anymore. Young, vibrant, genuinely compassionate. She had this way of listening to David talk about his work, asking questions that showed she actually cared about the answers. When was the last time I'd done that? The jealousy was a living thing inside me, growing stronger every day. I'd watch them through half-closed eyes, pretending to sleep while they talked quietly in the corner of my bedroom. The tender way he worried about disturbing my rest. The way she'd touch his arm when she laughed at his jokes. I was trapped in a prison of my own making. I couldn't get better too quickly, that would be suspicious. But every day I stayed sick was another day for them to grow closer. 3 months in, I overheard a phone conversation that nearly stopped my heart. David was in the kitchen, speaking in hushed tones. I know it's complicated, Emma, but I can't help how I feel. Laura's been sick for so long, and you've been like sunlight in this dark house. I pressed my ear to the bedroom door, my hands shaking for real this time. I feel guilty even saying this, he continued, but sometimes I wonder what life would be like if things were different. That night, David held me while I pretended to sleep. But his touch felt different. Obligated. Like he was touching a stranger out of duty rather than love. I realized I'd gotten exactly what I'd asked for, his attention, his care, his presence. But none of it was really for me. It was for the dying woman I was pretending to be. The real me, the healthy me, the wife he'd been neglecting, she was more invisible than ever. That's when I made my second terrible decision. If I couldn't have David's love, at least I could destroy theirs. I started dropping hints. Mentioning how young Emma was, how pretty. How nice it must be for David to have such pleasant company during such a difficult time. I said it with a smile, but I was planting seeds of doubt, trying to make him feel guilty for feelings he couldn't control. But Emma was too pure for my poison to stick. She never took the bait, never responded to my subtle accusations. She just kept being kind, kept doing her job with that genuine compassion that made me hate myself even more. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening. Emma's shift was supposed to end at 6, but she'd stayed late to help David prepare a special dinner for me. Some treatment milestone we were supposedly celebrating. I was lying in bed, listening to them laugh together in the kitchen, when I heard Emma say something that changed everything. David, I need to tell you something. About Laura's condition. My blood ran cold. Had she figured it out? Had she noticed that my symptoms didn't quite add up? I crept to the door, pressing my ear against the wood. I've been a nurse for 6 years, Emma continued, and I've seen a lot of patients with similar conditions. But Laura, there's something about her case that doesn't quite. What do you mean? David's voice was sharp with worry. I mean, I think she might be sicker than we thought. The way she looks at us sometimes, the things she says. I think she knows she's running out of time. I think she's trying to make sure you won't be alone when she's gone. The room spun around me. Emma thought I was trying to set them up. She thought my jealous hints were actually selfless matchmaking from a dying woman. She keeps talking about how young and beautiful I am, Emma whispered. How lucky you are to have someone to talk to. I think she's giving us her blessing. I slumped against the door, the weight of what I'd done crushing down on me. Emma's kindness, her genuine care, her willingness to see the best in everyone, even in me, and I was destroying her life with my lies. That night, I made a decision. Not because I was noble or good, but because I couldn't live with myself anymore. The next morning, when Emma arrived for her shift, I asked her to sit down. Emma, I said, my voice steadier than it had been in months, I need to tell you something. About my illness. About everything. She leaned forward, those kind eyes full of concern. What is it, Laura? I'm not sick. The words hung in the air between us like a guillotine blade. Emma's face went through a dozen expressions in as many seconds. Confusion, disbelief, understanding, and finally, hurt. Deep, profound hurt. I don't understand, she whispered. So I told her everything. The failing marriage, the desperate plan, the escalating lies. I watched her face crumble as she realized that months of her life, months of genuine care and compassion, had been built on a foundation of deception. The medications I've been giving you, she started, were mostly vitamins and placebos I got online. Nothing that could hurt me. The tests. I lied to the doctors. Exaggerated symptoms, described things that weren't there. Emma stood up, her hands shaking. Laura, do you have any idea what you've done? Not just to David, but to me? I've been caring for you, worrying about you, losing sleep over your condition. I've been. She stopped, her cheeks flushing red. You've been falling in love with my husband, I finished for her. The admission hung between us like a confession in church. I never meant for that to happen, she whispered. I would never, you were sick, I thought you were dying, I would never have. I know, I said. I know you wouldn't have. That's what makes this so much worse. Emma left that day and never came back. I don't blame her. But I still had to face David. That evening, when he came home expecting to find Emma and his convalescing wife, he found me sitting at the kitchen table, fully dressed, with a cup of coffee and a confession on my lips. David, we need to talk. He knew before I said a word. Maybe it was the way I was sitting up straight for the first time in months, or maybe it was something in my eyes. But he knew. How long, he asked, his voice flat. From the beginning. I watched 22 years of marriage die in his face. The shock, the anger, the disgust, and finally, relief. Relief that he could stop feeling guilty about Emma, stop playing the devoted husband to a woman he'd stopped loving years ago. Why, he asked. Because I was losing you, and I didn't know how to get you back. So you decided to lie to me instead of talking to me? Yes. He sat down across from me, this stranger who used to be my husband. Laura, I was having an affair. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not with Emma, he continued quickly. With someone from work. For 8 months. It started 2 months before you got sick. I stared at him, my mouth opening and closing like a fish. So while you were pretending to be dying to get my attention, I was already gone. And then, when I thought I was losing you for real, when I thought you might actually die, I realized I wanted to be a better man. A better husband. I fell in love with Emma because she reminded me of who I used to be when I was with you. The irony was suffocating. I'd faked an illness to save a marriage that was already over, and in doing so, I'd destroyed the only genuine thing that had grown from the ashes. David moved out the next week. The divorce papers came a month later. He and Emma, they tried to make it work for a while, but the foundation was too poisoned. How do you build love on a lie, even if the lie wasn't yours? She transferred to a different agency. He moved to a different city. I stayed in our house, surrounded by the remnants of a life I'd demolished with my own hands. The worst part isn't the loneliness, though that's crushing. The worst part isn't the guilt, though that's constant. The worst part is knowing that somewhere out there are 2 good people who could have been happy together if I hadn't dragged them into my web of deception. Emma deserved better than to fall in love with a married man while caring for his supposedly dying wife. David deserved the chance to explore his feelings honestly, without the weight of my fake illness making him feel trapped. And me? I deserved to lose them both. It's been 6 months now since I came clean. I've been going to therapy, trying to understand why I thought deception was easier than communication. Why I chose manipulation over honesty. Why I was willing to fake dying rather than fight for living. I can't undo what I did. I can't give Emma back those months of genuine care wasted on fake symptoms. I can't give David back his chance at honest love. I can't even give myself back the woman I was before I became someone capable of such elaborate cruelty. But I can tell you this, if your marriage is failing, if you feel invisible, if you're desperate enough to consider drastic measures, don't. Talk instead. Fight instead. Leave instead. But don't lie. Don't deceive. Don't fake your way into love, because what you'll get won't be love at all. It'll be pity. And pity, I learned, is the cruelest counterfeit of love there is. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just been honest from the beginning. If I'd sat David down and said, I feel like we're strangers. I miss who we used to be. Can we find our way back? Maybe we would have divorced anyway. Maybe we would have worked it out. Maybe he would have been honest about his affair, and we could have dealt with that together. I'll never know, because I chose lies instead of truth. Now I wake up every morning in a house that echoes with the ghosts of 3 broken hearts, mine, David's, and Emma's. And I know that somewhere out there, 2 people who deserved happiness are probably still wondering if they can trust love again after what I put them through. That's the real cost of my deception. Not just my own loneliness, but the doubt I planted in 2 good people's hearts about whether genuine emotion can exist in a world where someone can fake dying for attention. I faked terminal illness to save my marriage, and in the end, I killed something much more precious, the ability to believe in authentic love. Don't make my mistake. Subscribe if this story made you think twice about the lies we tell for love.